Former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst Frank Corrado joins us as he does each and every Thursday. Frankie, we're going to talk some Stanley Cup playoffs and some American Hockey League playoffs after the Abbotsford Canucks with a 3-0 victory over the Bakersfield Condors, game one of their best-of-3 series. First of all, Frank, you know, like the owner, the president of the hockey operation, all eyes were on the AHL team last. What's it like to play in the AHL playoffs knowing you've got the full attention of the NHL team?
It's fun. Like, that was one of the conversations we had when I was in Utica heading into that playoff run that we had. It's like everyone in the organization is watching us, but not only in our organization, the more teams fall off, the more that you're the last guys playing, and all the eyes are on you. And it's a cool feeling. It's a nice feeling knowing that teams are getting knocked off. You're the one still playing, and you get to audition for things a little bit more. And the one thing that always comes up in those meetings, team success is going to equal individual success. That's the nature of it. And the better we all did, like, we went to the Calder Cup finals and everyone got rewarded for it, whether it was with Vancouver or other teams that guys signed as free agents. I got picked up on waivers. It just seemed like that stayed with us a little bit. So it's an exciting time. And I think as much as the AHL is a development league, part of development is teaching how to win. And being put in a situation in the playoffs where you're going to go for a playoff run is part of that. So the teams that do it really well as far as developing players have struck a good balance between making sure young guys play, making sure they get their ice time, making sure they get the proper parts of the game, whatever you want to call it. But they also strike a balance where it's like winning is actually important, because when you get called up to the NHL at some point, that's all that matters. And that's the main focus. So you need to learn that at a young age, so that gets hammered home. But it's fun, it's exciting, and you feel like you're in this tunnel vision moment where you think everything revolves around this AHL finals, and within the organization and people that are really fixated on it, it sure does. But in comparison to the Stanley Cup playoffs, it seems like it's such a small thing.
What's the ramp up like? Is it the same idea as the National Hockey League? Same kind of jump? It's not going to jump to the same level as the NHL playoffs, but is this the same kind of jump?
Yeah, for sure. It's not the same as the NHL, just because the players, the skill, it's not there, but the intensity is there. And actually, the way guys finish hits in the American Hockey League, like, they will find you a little bit more because you know the kind of player that's playing there. It's not like the old school nasty Morasti kind of guys that are fighting 13 times a night, but it is guys that in order for them to get to the NHL, they're going to have to play a role, probably. So there's a lot more guys like that, and it's playoffs, and everyone knows what playoff hockey is all about. So there's way more emphasis, and you're going to get hit when maybe you're not expecting it, or if you think you won a battle, there's someone with an extra effort there. So the intensity ramps up for sure. There needs to be a balance stricken between playing with intensity, having a high compete level, and playing with intelligence. And that was my biggest takeaway from going on an AHL final run, if you want to call it, was that I almost got so caught up in, I got to cross-check this guy, I got to make sure I give that guy the business. Like, wait a second, everyone's doing this. If I just played a little bit smarter, I could probably find some pockets of the ice, find some plays to be made that could really have made a difference. But you get so wrapped up in it, it's hard to realize that.
So the reason I asked you that was Jack Rathbone, because there's two things wrong with Jack Rathbone. One we've all seen. One is what we think the organization sees. He's prone to some defensive foibles and giveaways. Secondly, I get the feeling, and I think others are in this camp too, that with Quinn Hughes there in particular, they don't want another pure skill defenseman, that they want guys just a little bit more well-rounded. Like, Quinn Hughes is not going to play physically. Jack Rathbone is most likely not going to play physically as well. Can you have two of your four defensemen in that mold? They may not like that. Can he prove to them in these playoffs, do you think, that I'm stiff enough that I can play? Like, he had some defensive foibles to start the game last night, settled down, scores a beautiful goal later on in the contest. But do you think this is an opportunity for him to prove that he's a little bit stiffer than they think
Absolutely.
he is?
Yeah, it is. And when I watch him play, the one word that comes to mind, as much as he's skilled and there's an offensive guy, it's erratic at times. And I think this would be a good opportunity for him to show that he can have poise in pressure situations and kind of break away from that label maybe of being an erratic player. Like I watch him sometimes when he gets called up, and I see the way he skates. I see the way he handles the puck. And I'm like, man, this guy has a good skill package. There's no reason why he should be in the American Hockey League. But then you watch him play, you're like, I see why. It's between the ears. And like you said, like if you're not going to be as skilled as Quinn Hughes, which not many people in the National Hockey League actually are, you're going to need to find a way to have something in your game that you move the puck well. That's great. You skate with the puck, all that kind of stuff. But you need to be relied upon for 15 to 18 minutes of reliable hockey. And that's where he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Like he goes on the second power play unit and he almost like wants to make up for so much time when he's out there. It's like, dude, you got to relax. You got to play the long game. The more calm, the more poised you are, the better it is because you'll find your opportunities when they present itself. You can't always force them. So for him, like the biggest thing that he should be focusing on is, yeah, you want to play with your offensive prowess. You want to play well defensively, but it's a great opportunity for people leaving the rink who are watching you with a microscope to say, he was poised tonight. I didn't feel that erratic. I didn't see that there was pressure on him. He kind of handled everything with a little fluidity and everything felt smooth. Too many times I watch him, I'm like, it's just not smooth. It's a little erratic. That's not to take away from his exceptional skill set, but it's about blending the two together if you want to be a regular NHLer. And I should know that better than anyone because I was not able to blend the two together.
I want to ask you about a couple of your buddies on the Abbotsford Canucks. One, Spencer Martin, who you've trained with in the offseason. 29 of his 38 career NHL games coming this year, and mightily disappointed in the way he performed. But it was a great story last year. Gets the shutout in Game 1 last night as a little bit of a surprise starter over Arthur Silas. Frankie, tell us about the Spencer Martin you know, because there's still a chance, and perhaps a good one after last night, that he's going to be the Vancouver Canucks backup.
There honestly is still a chance, and I think that's a great way to describe his journey. So when we were training together in the summers, he was with Tampa Bay's organization, and I think I can't remember who they brought in. It might have been Scott Wedgwood, one of those guys who had been around a little bit, and they brought him in to be the organizational number 3, let's say. So he was going to play in Syracuse, and there was another goalie in the mix. I remember talking to him, and he's like, I actually don't know where I'm playing this year because there's a lot of goalies in our organization, and I don't know what's going to happen. And next thing you know, he's playing NHL games in Vancouver. So he went in a system in Tampa where there were so many goalies ahead of him, and he's playing. So it's a great story, and it just goes to show you that you're closer than you think. Like you're one phone call away, you're one injury away, and he did well with the opportunity he was given. I really liked spending time with him, training with him. I thought he was a really hard worker. He took his craft very seriously. He was one of those guys where if we would all arrive at the gym for a 7 o'clock workout, he was there already. He was getting prepped. He had his equipment ready, and he was ready for the skate afterwards. And it wasn't like it was a rush for him to get out of the rink after. Like he really put a lot of time and effort into that summer of training and making sure he was getting better. And he was a highly touted goalie coming out of junior. Like it was a pretty high draft pick for a goalie. Played for Mississauga. Like he had a lot of name value behind him. So the journey goes on for him. The only reason I was maybe surprised to see him in the NHL was because of the situation. It's so easy to get lost in the shuffle, but I'm not surprised given the fact that I know the guy and I know what goes into him, and he's a really calm, mature kid. So hopefully he does well. And if he's learned anything from the past, it's like the story's not over yet. There's still an opportunity for you, regardless of what may have happened recently.
Christian Wolanin, you played with him in Belleville in the AHL just a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. He's the AHL Defenseman of the Year. Frankie returned to the lineup last night. He'd been hurt here with the Canucks. got on the score sheet. Do you think he's an NHL defenseman going forward? The ultimate late bloomer here in his late 20s?
Yeah, I think he's an NHL defenseman for sure. When you show that kind of dominance in the American Hockey League, it can be misleading at times. There are defensemen who have won that award in the AHL, and they've gotten opportunities in the NHL, and you're like, you're one of those guys that just figured out the AHL. That's all you are. I don't get that vibe with him. Like he has shown, whether it was with Ottawa or with Vancouver, he can handle minutes. He can play on the defensive side of the puck. He's improved in that regard, but he's a puck mover and he can skate. Like he's not one of those guys where it's a one-trick pony in the AHL, firing one-timers on the power play and kind of having a go-to guy in front of the net. Like that's not him. He's a good defenseman. I really enjoyed playing with him because obviously he wasn't afraid to make plays. He wasn't afraid to get involved. And there's a certain risk that's involved with a player that wants to be very forward thinking, but he does a good job of balancing the both of them. And like you said, like, I don't know if he's a late bloomer. A lot of it has to do with the fact that maybe in the past, like maybe in Ottawa, he wasn't put in good situations. And when that happens over and over again, the highlight reel in your head starts building up in a negative way. And he's done a good job this year, obviously, in the American Hockey League, in the AHL, of building that highlight reel back in a positive way. So, for him, going on a big run in the playoffs is only going to help. Like we talked about it with Rathbone. But with Wolanin, like him being the big dog there, like he's going to eat a lot of the marquee minutes, marquee matchups, and he'll almost take center stage there. That's only going to be better for him going into training camp. The only thing with that is if you go deep into the playoffs in the AHL, it's a quick turnaround for training camp in the NHL. And he's going to have to be one of those guys that comes in camp and he's really noticeable. Like that's a guy who's got to grab it at training camp and take the ball and run with it and tell the coaches and GMs, like, not going down this year. Sorry.
Yeah, Nicholas Kronwall, Justin Schultz, Jake Bean amongst the guys who have won that award.
Just looking at that.
Into, NHL
and there's
regulars.
Some guy, like, read the list. There's some guys who are like, you were just a really good American Hockey League player.
Yep, there's a bunch of those too.
How about ex-Canuck Marc-Andre Gragnani on that list? There you go.
TJ
That's
Brennan.
the name that comes to mind. Like he kept winning it, and he was
two-time Eddie Shore Award winner.
And he was a power play one-timer, kind of got the American League figured out kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Moving over to the NHL playoffs, Frankie. First of all, what do you make of Minnesota sitting Gustafsson after 51 saves and going to Fleury last night?
Really weird. I don't know what's coming out of there as far as quotes before the game, after the game. I saw something written up that it was like, oh, maybe they're saving Gustafsson for the home games because they already won on the road. That doesn't make any sense. Like,
you don't do
who
that,
does that? You have an opportunity to take two on the road. How do you not?
Yeah, you don't concede game
No,
two.
you don't just concede a game in a 7-game series. That's crazy. No. That's not even forward thinking. That's not progress. That's nuts. That can't be true. I have no idea what the thing is there. The only thing that I can think of is at times this year they were a tandem and maybe they committed to going to both guys in a playoffs. And I know it's something we don't typically see. But maybe that's kind of something that they decided they were going to try. I don't know, though. Like, if you're watching the Florida Panthers play, Alex Lyon has been unbelievable. And he's got Sergei Bobrovsky sitting on the bench making $10.5 million. And I don't care how much Fleury makes. I don't care how many Stanley Cups he's won. You got to go with the hot hand, man. This is your opportunity. You need to sprint through the first round because you know how it is. Guys will get hurt along the way. You'll find injuries. You'll find some bad play. Next thing you know, you wake up in the third round. Like, seriously, that's how quick it can happen. So I don't know why you concede a game and not play the hot goalie.
By the way, good on goalie Bob. He came off the bench to congratulate Alex Lyon, and he was as enthusiastic as anybody.
Sure, he makes $10.5 million. He should be very enthused. Darren Detition last night on SportsCenter said he was a $10.5 million hat rack.
I mean, $10.5 million for less work. Of course he's happy. Fleury and Gustafsson had rotated the final 14 starts of the regular season. The word was after 51 saves and double overtime, they wanted to keep him fresh. Of course, Dean Evason last year went to Marc-Andre Fleury as opposed to Cam Talbot in the playoffs, kind of backfired on him. So, we'll see what happens here, but I suspect it's Gustafsson crease going forward. The other thing from the Stanley Cup playoffs that perked ears, certainly perked ears more in your town than ours, but wow, that's a big suspension for Bunting for the Leafs in 3 games.
And nothing for Nosek for what many people think is the same kind of hit.
Yeah, and it's weird, too, because the Hartman hit on Nick Ehlers was probably more predatory than Bunting's, but Bunting's had it was a bad outcome. It was unnecessary. It had nothing to do with the play. It's hard, man. When you're dealing with these suspensions and the player safety, it's basically spin the wheel and see where it lands. So I'm at that game in Toronto. We're watching it, and we see it happen. And at first glance, I'm like, oh, they're just battling for body position, and he took something up high. Then we get the replay. We're like, ooh, probably going to leave the game here. It's going to be a 5. And then you watch it more and more. You're like, okay, is it going to be 1 or is it going to be 2? And you know that playoff games are weighted for more and all that kind of stuff. And when I saw 3 come down, my wheels started spinning in my head. I can't imagine how many memos have been sent around in the National Hockey League regarding officiating and Michael Bunting from officials, GMs, whatever the case may be. Too many times he has made officials look stupid, and they don't like that. Like, he's played too many guys. And if you've been paying attention to the Leafs, like, he's kind of paying the price for it right now. Like, he's not drawing as many penalties as he used to, and he's not getting the benefit of the doubt. I wonder if there's a little bit of a message there being sent. It's like, you presented yourself to us, and now we're going to get you because we have an opportunity. And it's weird to say that with the playoffs on the line, but that's with 3 games. That seems, I'm not going to say it seems steep because the play was unnecessary. He didn't have to do it. The puck was nowhere near there. I don't even, I'm all for fighting for body position and every inch matters. Had nothing to do with the play. So 3 seemed a little rich. I probably thought on the high side it was going to be 2. But at the end of the day, you can't lie with the video, man. That's what it is. Chernak's going to be hurt. He's a huge part of that Tampa team. That has to play into it. But I just wonder, Jeff O'Neill called it the Bunting tax. He said there might be a little tax attached to that.
Alex Burrows bit a finger and he didn't get 3 games.
Well, what's the other one? Someone was floating this video around. It was playoff suspensions that have been 3 or 4 games. The other one was Aaron Rome, right? He got 4 games. And Aaron Rome's hit was probably much worse than the Bunting one. I don't know if that's a touchy subject still.
It is a touchy subject.
It's a very touchy subject.
I think even watching it, it came across my feed and I'm like, 4 games in the Stanley Cup Finals. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Well, people have been brought up Rome a lot after the hit on Pavelski from Dumbo.
Yeah.
They're like, what's the difference? That one cost 4 games in the final and one got nothing.
I know.
I'll say this. I think Rome's hit looks worse because it was at speed. It was more body contact.
And the head.
But it was
Horton's head
but it was less.
Way, and then he's coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was, sitting there watching, it was my end of the ice there at the Boston Garden, or TD Bank North Garden, whatever they're calling it. This one looked a little more predatory, though. This one was that perpendicular hit that they don't love.
And the Bunting one, the head is the main point of contact. You hear that all the time, right?
That's
and
right.
The Horton one is he got the head, but he went square straight through the body.
Rome is late, and it's a huge collision, and it's an awful result, but it's in the flow of the game, whereas Bunting looked like he went out.
You get the chicken wing going. You get that chicken wing elbow going, you're asking for it.
Jim Nance should really narrate the videos for the suspensions, because it's a tradition unlike any other. Debating playoff.
Yeah, when Shanny was the Department of Player Safety, we used to get like the close up of Shanny. He would lead us into the video, like it was a whole production.
So weird.
Now we just get this weird, like 2-line blurb, like you guys figure it out. You guys know your stuff.
Yeah. Marvelous stuff, Frankie. Thank you for this, buddy. We'll catch up next Thursday.
Thanks for having me.